Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today is the 2nd of March, 2021. Alright everyone, let's get into the news from the last 24 hours. So, actually before jumping into that, I did want to talk about this tweet from Ryan Sean Adams today. So, he basically tweeted out, the fastest growing economy this decade won't be the US, China, or Europe, it'll be Ethereum. Now, I wrote about this in today's Daily Gwei newsletter, but I wanted to kind of talk about it on the Refuel as well. I thought this was interesting because what he's saying here is that, Ethereum might not become the biggest economy, right? It might not become like as big as, the US, China, or Europe, but it's about the rate of growth. So you could imagine Ethereum as like a small little developing nation at the moment, right? Where, we have these in kind of like in the physical world as well, where there's a bunch of developing nations and their rate of growth is usually pretty quick because, not only do they get to kind of leapfrog, through technological advancements, but people like to invest in the developing world because they kind of see that there's going to be kind of more developments happening there. There's going to be an economy bustling there. There's going to be greater kind of greater opportunities for them there as investors or as people kind of moving there to work there and things like that. So I think the same is kind of playing out within the Ethereum ecosystem, right? Where we're getting like a flood of people coming into the ecosystem, a flood of capital because there's opportunity. There's opportunity to invest in different DeFi protocols or NFTs or anything like that, right? We have people coming in and issuing their own NFTs on the Ethereum digital nation, essentially, right? Which is a nation with an economy. It has like a unit of account with ETH, right, for example, and then it has like all these different currencies like stable coins and stuff like that, and then it has all these different, you could call them, I guess, like companies, but they're actually protocols that have their own tokens, like an equity token essentially. So there's kind of a lot of parallels there between developing nations and Ethereum. And Ethereum's economic activity is grand, but it's still a rounding error when you compare it to like nation states, for example, right? So to the US, I mean, Ethereum doesn't hold a candle, in terms of economic activity. The US has 350 million citizens, right? Has trillions in GDP. The DeFi kind of, economy is, $40 billion locked or something like that. In terms of decentralized exchange volume, we're doing, I think, $70 billion a month now or something like that. So, I mean, the growth there from previous months and years is definitely like nothing to scoff at, but it's still tiny, right? And in terms of like actual users of these things, I've theorized before, it's probably a few 100,000 or something like that. So, Ethereum has a pretty grand population, in terms of like how many people are using it relative to other kind of blockchain networks or other kind of crypto networks, but it doesn't hold a candle to the populations of different nations like the US and China and Europe, right? But the special thing about Ethereum is that it is a global nation, right? It's a global economy where anyone from any one of these kind of countries can access it, barring some kind of, maybe blockage at like the internet level where, there are some countries that shut off the internet or maybe they'll block access to a lot of different websites and stuff like that. It's kind of hard to block access to the Ethereum network, but it can be done. But barring that sort of stuff, which doesn't affect most of the world, I think, you can access the Ethereum economy from anywhere, right? There's no KYC, there's no regulations for the, because it's all decentralized and things like that as well. And not only can you access it, you can build on it, right? You can build on it from anywhere in the world at any time that you want because Ethereum is on 24/7, right? You can be anyone you want. It doesn't even matter. You could even be like an AI and no one would even know, right? I know we aren't there yet with AI, but just imagine like we have like full AI or I've forgotten exactly what they call it now. It's like a specific, set of AI that can actually act like a human, think for itself. I think it's called generalized AI or something like that. But you could imagine that like no matter who you are, where you're from, it doesn't matter, right? We have projects spinning up within the Ethereum ecosystem that have fully anonymous teams now. I think Alchemix, a project that I've been speaking about lately, has a mostly or at least fully anonymous team, or at least pseudonymous, where people don't really know the identities of them, but the project has grown so much because it really just doesn't matter who you are. What matters is what you build, right? The quality of your product, the code that you ship at the end of the day. And that's what I think will make Ethereum the most powerful digital nation in kind of like the decades to come, right? And it'll be like one of the fastest growing economies, if not the fastest growing economy of the next decade, because it's just like it's a green field for experimentation. I know right now there's a lot of issues, right? We're limited by the scalability. The high fees are pricing people and use cases out. But I've spoken about it tons of times. We're going to solve that, right? I don't think that's going to be a lasting issue. That's just growing pains at the end of the day. We're going to solve that, and we're going to get to a place where, it's going to be cheap to kind of like build on Ethereum. It's going to be cheap to transact on it. It's going to be very scalable, so you can build, anything you kind of want on it as well. And it won't just be Ethereum. I've spoken about how, I think Ethereum sits at the center as like this, the kind of economic nexus that kind of like has all this capital flowing into it, right? Kind of like a big nation state like the US, for example, right? And then around it, you'll have all these smaller kind of, I guess you can call them nations or smaller networks that will feed in because, as a smaller network, you want to do trade with the bigger networks, right? You want to have your assets on there. You want to have your economic activity feeding into there so that you can tap into that economy and hopefully bring some of that wealth back to your own kind of network, right? And some of that activity back. So I think we're going to see that play out. There's not going to be, I don't believe there's going to be like millions of blockchains or anything like that or millions of crypto networks. I think there will be, a handful of like pretty sizable ones like we see in the kind of real world today, US, China, Europe being the sizable economies here, South Korea being pretty large as well, and Japan, all that sort of stuff. We're going to see like a handful of these large kind of economies, or at least large networks on kind of, I guess, like in the crypto sphere. I do believe Ethereum will be the biggest, and I believe it'll be the biggest by quite a large margin. But yeah, there's no denying that, everything built around Ethereum is just going to feed into it, and it's going to have its own kind of network effect there. And that doesn't include just crypto networks. It's anything in the crypto sphere, like centralized exchanges and stuff like that, and even centralized kind of chains and things like that as well. They, all feed this kind of economic activity into Ethereum. So I thought it was a really interesting tweet from Ryan. I wrote a little bit more about this in the Daily Gwei newsletter, but I basically covered most of what I wrote, just then. But yeah, I always love it when I read a tweet like this and it just gets my brain spinning, and then I just kind of want to share it with all of you. So hopefully, it just kind of, maybe altered your thinking around what Ethereum can be, and kind of like it can be so much more than what it is today. There is so much more left to unlock, so much more economic activity left to unlock that, that's what makes it most exciting, right? So yeah, something to think about for sure. So RAC on Twitter announced today that he is launching a new kind of initiative called zkNFT, which is a creative agency specializing in NFTs. Now, for those who don't know, RAC has been around for a while. He's a Grammy award-winning recording artist, but he's been around in the Ethereum community for quite a while now. He did a few different NFTs. He's done tape. You might have remember there was a cassette tape, a digital cassette tape that you could buy like as an NFT, and then you could kind of redeem that for a physical cassette tape. And I think that ended up being worth a lot. And he did that through Zora, I think. But he's been very heavily involved with, I guess because he comes from the music industry, with kind of thinking how this technology and specifically NFTs can help with the music industry, right? So this new initiative, I think, is going to work to kind of, as he says, brings the best minds in the space together to do this right. And basically what he means by do this right is make sure that we harness the power of this technology in the right way, and it reaches the right people across, the music industry and other industries that are going to get disrupted by this, which I thought was really cool. So if that's something you're interested in, as he says, you can reach out to him on this email here, nft@zk.digital. Or you can go to zkNFT, which is the Twitter account here. And I'll link this in the YouTube description as well for you guys to check out. So Hudson Jameson put out a really cool thread today, basically talking about how there are a lot of Ethereum projects right now hiring for like a multitude of different positions. And obviously a lot of people are reaching out to him about this because he's been in the community for a while. And I get this as well. I have so many teams reaching out to me about like finding people for them to kind of like hire because they've just got open positions coming out, coming out every day. So Hudson's tweet thread here basically describes like, I guess kind of a high level overview of like how to get more involved, what to do, what not to do, through the recruiting process. And he also had like an open kind of, I guess, forum here where he said, his DMs were open and he received over 50 responses in his DMs. And this is what happened to me too when I put the call out there, to kind of DM me or message me about this. And unfortunately, it's very hard for me to keep up with everything and keep up with it all. So I guess generally, go read this thread. But generally, I wanted to give just some surface level advice here on how to get involved kind of with crypto. as I said, there's so many opportunities happening, available right now across every single vertical, every single kind of like skill set, like marketing, community, developing, business kind of development, right? Smart contract development, stuff like that. All the financial kind of positions as well. Growth. There's so much in every single thing. So wherever you're coming from, I think, if you're coming from the kind of like traditional tech space or the Web 2 space, the jump into crypto can be kind of a little bit daunting because there's a lot of specific crypto things that you kind of maybe need to be aware of, especially as part of like marketing and community, because there's just a different way of doing things. There are different ways within the crypto ecosystem of kind of measuring things. Like if you worked in growth at a kind of like Web 2 company, right, your kind of like measurements of success and your KPIs would have been looking at like Google Analytics, for example, right, and seeing click-through rates and all that sort of stuff. That still plays a part in, crypto, specifically in DeFi. But in DeFi, what we measure kind of success by is total value locked, right? Volumes, the amount of economic activity within the protocol. So that's where you kind of have to like switch a little bit into kind of, you are a growth person, but you're also switching into a bit of an economic analyst too, and kind of learning all that sort of stuff. So there is a little bit of a learning curve there, but I wouldn't be daunted by that, and I wouldn't be kind of like discouraged by that. I would take that as an opportunity to learn, and there's plenty of places to learn. I mean, you can just sit on crypto Twitter for a little while and get like a feel for what's going on, and get involved with the different communities on Discord. I mean, each of these projects have a Discord community that you can go in and just start talking to people straight up. You don't even have to be anyone. Like, you can be anonymous on there. Just start talking to people. Like, it doesn't even matter who you are or where you're from or whatever, as I just explained before. And then you're going to get, just spend some time in the community, and you're going to get people responding to you. You can ask dumb questions. It doesn't matter, right? They may be dumb to the people that have been around for a while, but for you, you're just learning. And obviously, keeping up to date with all the stuff happening in the ecosystem, whether that's through the Daily Gwei ecosystem, ETHUB, Bankless, the Defiant, DeFi DAD, all that sort of stuff. And you can get up to speed pretty quickly. There's a lot of content out there for you now. So I think that's the first thing you should do, is definitely get a lay of the land when you come into crypto if you're looking for a job here. And then I mentioned the other day, you can go to like the cryptocurrency jobs website. You can just Google cryptocurrency jobs and then kind of look on there for what's available. You can visit the different project websites, and they'll have their open positions on there. And really, the best way to get involved is maybe just like get into the community of a project that you want to be involved with, and kind of just like talk to people. And what's even really cool about this is that there are total like kind of autonomous or like DAO organizations right now for different projects, like Badger DAO, Harvest Finance, the Index Co-op, that will literally pay you kind of like an equivalent of a full-time salary to work for the DAO, essentially. And they'll pay you in the native tokens as well, so you can either cash that out or get exposure to the upside, right? So that's one thing that's uniquely enabled by Ethereum and DeFi and crypto and all that. So something to keep in mind. Definitely go read Hudson's thread, because he's got great tips here. But I would say DM me for more advice here, but I get so many DMs that I can't respond to everyone, and it just takes up a lot of time to do it. But I'm always happy to answer questions, whether that be in the Daily Gwei Discord channel or anything like that, especially because in the Discord channel, there's other people that can also answer your questions if I'm not there, which I think is really cool, because you can just start forming that community. And we've got a few really good community members in there right now doing some really cool stuff. So yeah, definitely do that. Or, you can always, if you really need something specific answered, you can definitely DM me. I'm okay with that. But sometimes it might take me a little while to get back to you, unfortunately. Especially if it gets buried in like my message requests on Twitter. Sometimes I don't look at those for like a week, because it's just full of spam most of the time, unfortunately. So yeah, definitely always keen to help, but just, sometimes it's just, it's a bit too much. Like as Hudson said, he got over 50 DMs from this, and he's just one guy, right? I'm just one guy. We can't reply to all of this kind of, unfortunately. But don't let that discourage you. There's plenty of other people in the ecosystem that can help you, and it doesn't have to be just one person. You can kind of, as I said, join communities, and they'll be able to help you as well. So Andre put out this, teaser tweet, really. I mean, this announcement tweet of this new kind of Boardroom that they're calling it, which is basically a single portal for multi-governance, view proposals, discussions, breakdowns, and more. Basically, it's like a portal for governance. As you can see here, there's a bunch of different projects here, Compound, Uniswap, Synthetics, blah, blah, and you can click through to them and you can see all the active kind of governance proposals and kind of like how they do governance, right? And learn how the Compound governance process kind of works. You can set up delegation, you can connect your wallet here and things like that, which I thought was really cool. So, I mean, yeah, if we go back, I mean, there's Uniswap, Synthetics, all this sort of stuff here. You can kind of like just see how their governance process works at a glance. I mean, if I click through to Uniswap here and go to proposals, you can see the new proposals or all the proposals kind of like active. You can see voters, the forum. I mean, this is really, really cool because typically with governance, we see kind of low voter turnout, I guess you could call it, because, I mean, it's very hard at the end of the day to keep track of. If you're part of like 5 different communities and there's 5 different kind of like, things you have to kind of stay on top of to govern, it's kind of hard to keep on top of it all. So I think this works as like a governance aggregator to help you kind of keep on top of it. And I mean, I've spoken about this before, and I think the end state for governance within DeFi is just going to be like people electing representatives, basically by delegating their tokens to them to vote on their behalf, because that's the only way it really scales. It's very hard to get like voter participation from like a lot of people holding the tokens and things like that. So I think that's going to be, kind of how it scales out here. So yeah, really cool little tool that Andre kind of posted about here. I'll link it in the YouTube description. You can go check it out. So Matteo Leibowitz from Uniswap posted this cool little chart here today, which he's calling the Stairway to Heaven, which basically shows the Uniswap unique users. So I think this is like unique addresses kind of interacting with Uniswap at any given, I guess, like month here, looks like, or maybe like every kind of like week here. But basically, February 1st set a new all-time high, or at least the month of February, I think, for almost 400,000 Uniswap unique users, which I thought was really, really cool. And I think this isn't cumulative. This is unique users during that month. So, you can see here that even during the airdrop, their unique users wasn't even that high, right? Back in, I think, September is when the Uni airdrop happened. So, this is just really great kind of growth to see. And the fact that this is almost 400,000 for just the month of February speaks to how much this kind of stuff is growing. I mean, as I said at the start, these user numbers aren't really kind of like anything to write home about, right? There's not like millions or tens of millions just yet, but it's growing, right? And that's what we're measuring kind of the Ethereum economy in the growth, not in so much in like the kind of how it compares to other things, but just like the growth rate and kind of like extrapolating that out, saying, okay, well, we're really bullish on this technology and we think it's going to grow like much faster than from here. So let's kind of extrapolate it out and say, if this growth trend continues, what can we get to? And that's what's kind of been happening. So really great to see this within Uniswap. I think Uniswap's a really great barometer of the overall unique kind of Ethereum users because of the fact that like everyone uses Uniswap, right? I mean, it is the DeFi app that most, pretty much everyone uses because it's a swap protocol. The biggest DeFi app is Maker, but not everyone uses Maker because not everyone wants to use their ETH or whatever as collateral to basically leverage it, right? Not everyone wants to do kind of leverage things. So, but with Uniswap, everyone, will want to trade a token at one point or another, whether that's trading some stable coins for ETH or trading a token for another token or whatever, right? So yeah, really great to see this growth here from Uniswap. So the Defi Pulse Index rebalanced again over the last 24 hours and added Sushi to its index. So I think this is covering most of the quote-unquote DeFi blue chips now. If you go and kind of like look at the rest of the tokens in there, I mean, you can see some of them in my screenshot here, but while this loads here, see it, yeah, it's loaded now. You can see that it's covering most of the kind of DeFi blue chips. You have Uniswap, Aave, SNX, Sushi now, and basically all of the things that people call blue chips, I think. And for those of you wondering why, maybe your favorite token isn't in the DeFi Pulse Index, there's a strict kind of rule that the project has to be live for 6 months. So that's why Sushi was only included now. It's because Sushi's only 6 months old. So there's other projects that are still needing to age and will get added eventually. I can imagine there's plenty. I mean, even like the Index Co-op who manages the DeFi Pulse Index, that token will be added soon, I think. There's other popular DeFi tokens like Badger as well. I mean, there's a bunch of others that I think will be added to this index. So fair to say, if it hasn't been added yet, it will be at the 6 month mark. But there's also a methodology that you can view here that has the full breakdown of, what the actual the token inclusion criteria is. I mentioned the 6-month rule because that is definitely one of the most strict, because it's kind of like something you can't force, right? You have to just wait, and that's what kind of bars a lot of these tokens from being included. But yeah, I think each month we're going to see a new kind of token, one or even two new tokens at a time included in the kind of index here. So really cool to see that Sushi's finally in here. So Hermez, for those who don't know, Hermez Network is another layer 2 scaling solution using ZK rollups. So they went live to their public testnet today. They're going to be, this will be I think the final round of private testing ahead of the launch of the mainnet in the coming days. So more layer 2 coming, right? I mean, I've been speaking about this a lot lately, and I think that it's just going to accelerate from here. What Hermez does is basically, I think it's like a payments protocol, essentially, where you can basically, there's a functional mobile and web wallet to interact with the ZK rollup technology that they're using. They've got an explorer for it, and then you can kind of like use this test net here and to kind of like see how it all works here. So yeah, really cool to see this going live. And on the L2 news as well, zkSync announced that they raised a bunch of money, I think, from a bunch of different kind of leading DeFi projects here. So, projects including, if this image loads, Aave, Balancer, Curve, Loopring, even Binance, which is funny, right? Coinbase Ventures, I mean, there's like the who's who of like investors and ecosystem partners here, which I thought was really cool here. But the round was actually led by Union Square Ventures, which is a kind of like a fintech or a traditional tech kind of startup investor that's been around for quite a while now. And yeah, I mean, there's a ton of investors in here. So for those of you who aren't familiar with zkSync, they're a payments protocol on ZK using ZK rollup. They've been integrated with Gitcoin so far. You may have used it when you were using Gitcoin, and it works very well. And they've actually teased here that they're going to turn their technology into an EVM-compatible ZK rollup. Now, this may remind you of the kind of, I guess, like a little bit of a battle going on between optimistic rollups and ZK rollups right now, where Optimism has focused their attention on building an optimistic rollup that could support the EVM so that you could just port your contracts from mainnet straight to the optimistic Ethereum network. And ZK rollup kind of came under a bit of scrutiny, or a bit of, I guess, like an attack, saying, ZK rollups are good, but they can't do smart contracts, or they can't do EVM-compatible smart contracts. And zkSync's out here saying, well, no, we can do it, and we're going to show you. So the layer 2 wars are heating up. I mean, this is beautiful. This is what we want. We want competition between not only different chains and different scalability solutions, but also the different layer 2 teams as well. So really cool to see this, and I guess congrats to zkSync on the raise here, and congrats to Hermez Network on getting the kind of public testnet out here as well. So the Yearn V2 ETH vault is now live. So this has been hotly anticipated for quite a while now. And you may remember that the V1 ETH vault actually ended up sucking up like a ton of ETH liquidity back when it launched. I think it had like $500 million worth of ETH in there within a few days. And, the V2 ETH vault was basically being built over the last few months. I think it was being built to be much more secure than V1 and done in a much better way using the V2 Yearn infrastructure. So really cool to see that out there. But you can go to yearn.finance to view all the vaults they have, including the ETH vault, to see if that's something that you want to, I guess, like put your ETH into, because there's just so many different things you can do with your ETH now. So you got to kind of like weigh up the benefits, right? Do you want to use your ETH in Maker or in a money market as collateral to kind of like draw stable coins against and go buy some coins? Or do you want to use your ETH in staking? Do you want to use your ETH in, I've spoken about Alpha Finance having a ETH kind of like product that you can use to get like I think it's over 10% yield on your ETH. Or do you want to use the Yearn Finance Vault, which doesn't give you the APY just yet because it's so new, but I feel like it's going to be high. So yeah, definitely go check that out. And there's actually another product coming from the Index Co-op soon as well, called the Flexible Leveraged Index, or the FLY, which may be appealing too, but I'll cover that once it's released for sure. So Sebastian from MakerDAO put out this interesting tweet today, basically saying that, growth continued for MakerDAO during February, doubling the income month on month. So the Maker protocol is making 6.6 million in net income for MKR holders, which means it's going and buying MKR and burning it. And the cost of token rewards and LP fees is just $10, which is the DSR being activated. What this means is there's no incentives, right? You don't earn MKR tokens for putting your assets in MakerDAO right now. So it's all kind of, I guess, like very natural growth here. And I've spoken about this before, right? About how the Maker protocol is growing really quickly, right? The DAI supply is at all-time high. People are loving it. People are using it. But the MKR price has lagged. I mean, it's lagged in USD terms, right? It recently went up a fair bit, but, you know, for, I guess, like the last 2.5 years or something, it's sat around $500-$600 and kind of oscillated around there. And against ETH, it's actually, you know, not performed very well at all. And, you know, I think this is actually like the market being very inefficient, because if you think about it, Maker as a protocol is generating so much money for token holders, but the problem is that the token holders aren't directly getting that revenue, right? What happens is the protocol goes and buys MKR tokens and burns it, right? But the actual token holders are just holding their token, hoping that it goes up in value because of the buy and burn mechanism, which I've long thought wasn't a really, wasn't a great kind of, I guess, solution here. I'm a much bigger fan of people being able to stake their tokens and earn the native token denominated return, kind of like what Sushi Swap does, right? With Sushi staking, and Farm does it as well and stuff like that, rather than the buy and burn model. I mean, I don't think that's a good model. And you know, you might think, oh, well, you know, ETH's getting a burning mechanism with EIP 1559. You know, why does that give value to ETH? And, you know, you may be right that maybe it doesn't give like that much fundamental value to ETH, but ETH as an asset is used much more than just to pay fees, and much more than just to like burn fees in 1559. ETH as an asset is used as money, right? It's used as a store of value, used as collateral, used as in staking. The MKR token, there's not much use for it besides you literally just hold it, right? I think you can use it as collateral in some DeFi protocols, but really, you're just holding it, right? You can't stake it to earn fees. You just have to hope that there's enough buy and burn pressure to increase the MKR token price over time, which seems to be playing out against USD. But I always look at this stuff against ETH, because if you're not outperforming ETH, then there was no reason for anyone to hold your token. They should have just held ETH, right? So ETH's kind of like my benchmark index for DeFi tokens. But we'll have to see, right? I think the market isn't being as efficient as it could be here. Not financial advice, but I do think MKR is undervalued. I don't hold any right now because I have PTSD from watching the price do nothing for so long and then dropping against ETH that I just don't want to hold it. But I actually do think, ironically, if they change to like a staking model where instead of buying and burning, people locked up their MKR tokens and staked and got like a return like that, there'd be much more demand for the MKR token, much more of the float would be taken off the market, right? The circulating supply, and there would be a better narrative around it. But long term, I don't think, maybe that doesn't matter, right? Maybe long term, the MakerDAO protocol just keeps growing and growing and growing, and holding MKR tokens for over the long term was probably, you know, maybe it was a good idea. I don't know, but it's good to see them growing. You know, it's good to see the DAI supply at all-time highs, because Maker is still a brilliant protocol. It's one of the only that I trust with my ETH when I want to take leverage. So definitely kudos to them on just pushing forward, regardless of sentiment about the token or about the project or whatever. I think that they've just pushed forward, and it's worked really well for them. All right, that's it for today, everyone. Thank you again for listening and watching. If you haven't done so yet, be sure to give that video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, join the Discord server, subscribe to the newsletter, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.